We are back. This is I've been gone for months. Recorded one last week with Wade. Put out one last night with the interview with Nick from World Hockey Jerseys Canada, and now we're doing one the day after. Why? Because there's nothing to talk about. Because Fanatics, holy hell! Anything the hockey world blew up like crazy. And I've got a couple people with me tonight. Of course, everybody knows Wade. Also have Chris Grissom joining us via audio. So a good group. Hopefully, Paul Rank was supposed to join us tonight. Maybe he'll be able to get in later. But Paul and I have been talking all day and sending stuff back and forth. And we all have preparing for this. I've been reading articles like crazy, getting backstories and research, and the Twitterverse, the Facebook verse, all of that went to shit over this. Holy cow. So Wade, I'll start with you. Were you surprised? I mean, we kind of saw this announcement coming. Everybody guessed last year when Adidas said, "Yep, we're done."
There was two parts for me. One, I kind of expected it to go this way because I hadn't heard really any rumblings anywhere else. And the only thing that really surprised me is kind of something off topic would be the fact that I read today that Nike declined to even put a package together because they weren't interested in working with the NHL is basically what it said. So
I've seen that in a few reference in a few places, and that
I think that speaks
question.
I think that speaks less about the jerseys and I think more about their feeling with the NHL. Like kind of some of the stuff I read pointed towards they didn't really want to work with Batman and the whole administration of the hockey, and so they weren't interested in doing a partnership. But I also think that Fanatics has already had their hand in the cookie jar with the NHL as far as the license stuff and whatever. So it's hard to say it was a shocker today.
Well, and the other piece of this too with Fanatics, I was actually talking to a guy in my office who is a Blues fan, is also NCAA fan. They have the NCAA, the NFL. They own lids. They own, honestly, and again, I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on this podcast, but it's almost monopolistic. About the only thing we found they don't have a contract for is the Professional Bowlers Association.
Yeah, they wanted to get in trading cards, so they kind of put Topps out of business. They changed the licensing on stuff. I mean, that's beyond, like if you look into what Fanatics is, beyond Fanatics, there's even like a bigger entity that runs them. I mean, they use a lot of different names to keep it clean. That's the best way to put it.
Right. And this is a 10-year deal that starts after this next season.
Yeah.
So we have one more year of Adidas. And again, to be clear for the short term, at least for the first few seasons, they are using the same factory that Adidas is using. So they don't anticipate for at least till I think 26, 27, any big jersey changes that they have said right now.
Yeah, it said the only thing I could see that I read today, again, like both of us said, we were both doing our reading, and I'm sure Grissom was too. All of us were looking into this. I think the one thing I saw was they said that, I guess, I don't think we're going to see any changes for a year or two. I think materials, they said, could change slightly, but the designs of the jerseys aren't changing.
And I get it. And if once you guys listen to this, anybody out there you want to follow, great status updates and just great humor, go out to Twitter and follow Fanatics Sucks. Their page is great, and there's some good audio clips. I'll be sending this podcast to them as well. Their statement, and they have a fantastic logo. It's actually a Fanatics Sucks logo. It says holding Fanatics accountable for their poor quality merchandise and deceptive business practices.
There you have it.
So Chris, how about your thoughts?
Yeah, it wasn't much of a surprise at all. I'd been rooting for seeing CCM back in the NHL as the jersey provider. I think a lot of other folks who've been around for a while have been too. But it just didn't make sense when you look at how, like you all said, how much money is being put towards the NHL by Fanatics. And I mean, let's be real, there's success behind it. I mean, I agree with a lot of the criticisms they've taken over a lot of the fan apparel and some of those type of items. but they're making money. And you even look at the variety of products they're putting out there. There's a lot more to pick from than there used to be. I know back when Hull was playing for the Blues, you only had so many options for styles and shirts and sweaters and all that stuff. And you get something of almost anything now. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I wish they'd source from a better factory for those things. I think that would be my big takeaway.
One of the things I did read too was, as everybody knows, Major League Baseball jerseys are Nike. However, they're actually produced via Fanatics, via their purchase of the Majestic brand, which was the long-standing brand that produced baseball jerseys and baseball stuff. So, and apparel for the teams. So realistically, I think this is going to be a kind of replay of that where, and they've been doing that quietly. I think they said since like 2015. And nobody really knew that, but they bought Majestic and then did that. So I think that's going to be the same play here. I don't think that as far as the on ice stuff is going to see much of a decline. And I agree with Chris. I mean, you can get anything you want with your team's logo on it through Fanatics these days, which
and it's almost a little obscene.
Sure. I mean, but they own like, was it, I forgot the name of the brand, but that like 47th. Yeah. So they own that and do it separately, and they make a really quality stuff. So I think really the quality depends on which title you go with Fanatics. But
and I mean, and you see, if you see pictures of players or interviews of players in the locker room, they're wearing the Fanatics undershirts, they're wearing the Fanatics team issued hoodies, and we buy that at equipment sales and that kind of stuff. They are everywhere. A little background, and there's a fantastic article, because I won't touch on all of it, ESPN put out. It is fantastic. It covers all of this. It's everything you need to know about the Fanatics jersey deal. Greg Wyshynski, I think is how you pronounce his name, did a fantastic job. He's the senior NHL writer, and really breaks it down. Talked about how Fanatics started. Back in 2005, GSI Commerce took over all of the NHL's e-commerce side. They did a 10-year deal after that with them in 2009. Michael Rubin acquired Fanatics in 2011 and then sold GSI to eBay for $2.4 billion, and then bought back the sports e-commerce side to launch Fanatics. And they just continue to grow. They've done, I mean, all the All-Star Game, the Winter Classic. They've been running the flagship store in New York since 2021. 2017, Fanatics acquired the rights to make the replica breakaway jerseys. Some of the I love this, the innovations that were more stain resistant materials and a quote foldable jersey logo crest for easy storage. Then they received the rights in 2018 to make the Authentic Pro, making the practice wear for players, basically like I said, all the locker room type things,
the under jersey, underpants stuff.
Yeah.
It's actually funny. Every once in a while, you'll see a guy do an interview, and you can tell that every once in a while, you'll see a guy still rocking like a Reebok shirt.
The guys that like the old school stuff that they've broken in and will just continue to wear it.
Yeah,
a side note to this, and it was Adidas / Fanatics a little bit. The authentic Adidas lawsuit was thrown out a week and a half ago. The people suing for the authentic quote on ice jerseys where they were did get thrown out. Court's like, nope, you did prove enough in this, and they threw the case out. I expect to see another one filed with some better stuff, but it was tossed.
Very interesting. Another thing I did notice was no reverse retro 3.0. So it's going to be interesting to see, next year I think it's going to be pretty plain, it sounds like, as far as jersey. I don't think we're going to see any specialty jerseys is the way I'm assuming. I mean, I guess it's a guess, but if they're not doing a 3.0 reverse retro, I'm sure Adidas isn't going to be investing a ton of time in doing any new designs or redesigns. So I think next year
you're going to wrap up that contract for next year, and then
I think it'll be pretty blah. I think whatever teams have or whatever's been produced, which actually could be interesting. I mean, who knows? I mean, the Blues only wore one set of the yellow reverse retro this year, so if they've got enough blanks laying around, do they suddenly say, hey, we're doing a one night of those? I mean, so there could be some interesting things that happen around the league with that. However, I think next year is going to be pretty blah, and then I think we'll see the Fanatics spin the next year. Maybe. Well,
but remember, too, we actually saw that with Adidas the year for Prime Green. They said we're we're switching this material. This is going to be home and aways, and then next year the stuff will come back, and
Sure.
they did that. And some of it's the switching of the material, and in this case it'll be, yes, it's the same factory, but Fanatics may want to change whatever, and they get a retool to put the stupid ass flag on it.
Well, then I think in 2 years, I think you'll see some teams maybe take advantage of this year, and then next year, the Blues are due for a redesign or a redo of the home and away. We've been in the same ones for a long, long time. I think there's probably a few other franchises that maybe take advantage of the new branding with Fanatics and maybe roll out a new home and away set. And that's a guess, but I mean, it would make sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. It's just a little bit of history here with our switches of who manufactures the on ice jerseys. When we went to Reebok back in 07-08 with the Edge 1.0, just a couple things with that. They went home and away. That's it. They did not do the third jersey at that point. They halted that program. And part of that, I bet it was two pieces. One, let's focus on the things we must deliver home and away. And then the other, let's let them buy the new ones home and away, right? Let's let them get out there and purchase those, but let them buy a second or third jersey when we start rolling out the others. So, and a quick note about that one, if we all remember, that's when they introduced the Edge jersey, right? So
Yep.
They started with the infamous 1.0 is what we call it now. Where they did change the material, and about halfway through the season, they're like, hey, no, let's go back to the old stuff that worked, because they're having issues with it wicking too well. So they're getting their skates and their gloves soaked full of sweat. So that was an interesting transition when they had their first big one. And then the same thing when they switched to Adidas in 17-18. At that point, it's not the third jersey program, it's alternate jersey program. They halted that except for like the special event stuff. And then they waited the following year to roll out the alternates again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see them kind of, I think there's a few things that were planned for next year, like y'all said. It'll probably stay pretty vanilla that very first year outside of any wholesale changes, if anybody wants to totally redo their uniform. And we probably won't see another alternate till after that, if history is consistent. So
Sure.
we'll have to see how that plays.
Right, and it seems to kind of line up that way. I did find some other numbers too. This was a great article the Hockey Writers put out. I believe it was last July. It's when the announcement that Adidas said, soon this contract's coming to an end, we're not going to renew it. Hockey Writers put out some good stuff, including numbers of who the manufacturers are and the value they get per year. The NFL, which is made by Nike, their value per season is $125 million with an 8-year contract. Nike also does the NBA at $125 million for 8 years. Adidas does Major League Soccer at $117 for 6. Nike with Major League Baseball, $100 million for 10. And Adidas, NHL, $70 million. And that may have been part of it too.
Yeah.
And then you go over to Europe, because they put those numbers in there, is the teams that they Barcelona, Madrid, Manchester United, those big names. FC Barcelona, the Nike per season value is $170 million
For one team.
Yep, and that's a 5-year deal. And then Real Madrid also in the La Liga league, $170 million. Manchester United's 91.
Wow.
Adidas, that's part of probably what Adidas said, you know what? We only make $70 million from the NHL. We can do better in soccer. And are walking away.
And Nike's probably got enough stuff going on with everything else. Like, why would they want to bother for that light of a payday?
Right.
Makes sense.
So,
yeah.
I mean, from there's some other concerns from the gaming side of things. And a lot of this Fanatic stuff is going to be again, we already have the merchandise everywhere, and I don't know how this is not a monopoly, but again, I'm not a lawyer, nor do I know how monopolies are truly determined, but it seems to be growing that direction. But the concern amongst a bunch of people that I've had conversations with over the last 24 plus hours is, does Fanatics pull the crap of, we're doing the jerseys, the game jerseys, we're selling them all?
Chris, you can jump. I can't see how they can do it, because if you think of it, if the Cardinals. So as far as I know, like the Cardinals sell their jerseys, their game worn jerseys, and I think in Major League Baseball, everybody has the rights to them. Because if I'm not mistaken, and somebody could correct me here, I believe the teams do technically purchase those from the manufacturer. So the team owns them, not Fanatics at that point. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you're on point. I think what it really comes down to is, there's contracts set up or at least agreements with folks like Migray, and they may have their own internal programs. So it'll just depend on if the NHL, and by NHL I mean the owners, were to come together and say, hey, do we want to do this different? Or if they get pitched by
Sure.
Fanatics to say, hey, you all are doing this, why don't we handle it for you? And, with all those kind of agreements, you could work in things like, oh, well, here's a percentage that, for your sales we'll put towards a charity, because a lot of the blues stuff goes for Blues for Kids, right?
Sure.
So it just depends on if there's an interest in Fanatics to pitch it, and is there an interest in the owners to receive it? Because then there's other pieces, right? Now there's the agreement that the players will get at least one jersey, right, from each year from their team. So that's already pre-existing. So it just depends if someone with a vision's got an idea and they can pitch it right, and everybody sees it as a win-win. But you'd get some consistency with that idea. But
we also saw how Fanatics has run when they ran the Blues for short term, and they did a few other teams, and of course they bought who ran the Rangers program. Yeah, Steiner. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that used to be pretty straightforward. It seems to be a little messier now, Wade. I think you've dealt with some of that way more than I have, but it seems like it got a lot rougher.
The logistics of that, I think, would be, to do all 32 NHL teams and all those jerseys, I think at the end of the day, Fanatics would have to look at the cost of managing that. And that means somebody in every city handling, beyond the equipment guys. Because, here, think of it like this. The Blues have 2 or 3 people that take those after they come out of the equipment, and like the logistics of it for Fanatics to warehouse all that and do all that. You guys have seen some of the pictures from Migray. I've personally been in the back. I've been in Steiner, and some of the logistics of it. I don't know if anybody would want to do that, to be honest.
But Fanatics look at
I don't know how they make money
Fanatics has, though.
Sure,
they
the
have
problem
the capital, but do they want to take on that role?
That's the question. Do they want to? And the other thing we've seen with them in the past is a lot of sales. They put them up on their website, which is fine and good, but then you have their sales agents.
Yes.
And that creates a whole lot of variability. And, we've seen them get stuff from the teams and absolutely swing for the fences on the price. They're just hoping they find the one person who's got some gold under their pillow or something to go buy some $7,000 red Jordan Bennington pads,
right?
Which they've held on to for quite a while now.
Exactly. Or 5 different people are reaching out about, hey, and each of their sales reps offers a different price to if somebody's a better buyer than somebody else.
Well, you can see the list. You can see the prices on the Rangers list is pretty incredible. Like the initial drop prices sometimes on that stuff is just like, they get to the point where they just put them on eBay, like the stuff they can't get rid of, which is crazy. So I don't know.
I know there's a lot of I don't want this to come off as oh my God, the sky's falling and everything's nuts, but I want us to look at this and again, the hobby's gone ape shit over this. And there's a lot of concern, but I think also because there's so many unknowns is part of what hurts.
Sure. It's it's going to be I think it's going to be an interesting 2 years. I think here again, I think the Blues have been doing a better job, and to always harping back to them because I think we're all Blues guys. The Blues have been doing a better job of emptying the coffers so that they don't end up in a situation like they did at the summer sale a couple of years ago where they had 1,000 jerseys.
Yeah.
But here, if you're a collector of other stuff, you're gonna, there's gonna be a lot of like merchandise stuff that, or player worn under stuff that's going to be available in 2 years whenever this thing happens too. So that summer sale is going to be pretty incredible.
Yeah. Here's a hypothetical for you guys. So we know a lot of game worn stuff, especially like All-Star Game or Winter Classic, gets auctioned through NHL auctions, right?
Yep, we know who owns that too, or controls it anyway.
Yeah, precisely. So if that's the route they want to go, and they just say, hey, send us your sets of jerseys, send them, just mail them on down, and they want to throw them up and auction them, you're getting them out of the hair of the team. They don't have to deal with the overhead, they don't have to deal with questions about who authenticated what. It puts all the responsibility on Fanatics to guarantee that authentication, right? And if they're just auctioning them, they keep them for a period of time, and probably most jerseys will get bids, unless they're overpriced to start. They could just say, hey, that's the easiest way, and we're not in a game worn jersey selling business. We're in we're hockey operations. So it really just depends on the desire of Fanatics and the right pitch. But
Sure.
a company like that can figure out a strategy if they so chose. But I do appreciate just getting it directly from the team. It's a little more personal, and that might be just in my head, but it just feels that way to me. I like being able to say I bought mine from the Blues,
Sure.
as opposed to a company. So yeah, we'll have to see. It's all valid questions and
Right.
something to watch
And
and give our feedback to them on as well.
Yeah, very much so. And again, we have a season to still have Adidas in that, and maybe that's the point where we start feeling out some of the teams. And as some of you know or don't know, as we've talked, Wade and I have a decent relationship with a person that runs the program in St. Louis, and we email or see him at games and talk. And at some point I plan to reach out to them, one, to see about having them on the show, and two, to see if I can gauge anything, because you're right, Chris, is some teams may go, you know what, it is easier for us to just have Fanatics give us a check for so much money or a cut of these, and we just ship them to them and move on, because you're right, you don't have to have 2 or 3 or 4 people at the team. The trainer, whoever boxes them up and sends them, the only thing is you got to track when the hell were they worn. However, part of that may be, and this just popped into my head now, and I may be totally wrong, is you got the tracking tags
Exactly.
for the skating, in that you can now tie them into the jerseys and basically say, okay, we know this white or this home set was worn here. The tracking tag shows this time on ice, do whatever. And then they make some change in it and said, okay, now we're on set 2 as of this date. They wore them, blah, 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 all this stuff. Because I know at least 1 or 2 of the teams now are giving out that some of that tracking tag info, like the time on ice, and something else. I can't remember which team it was, but somebody had put it on one of the Facebook pages, the sheet of all that detail.
It was Pittsburgh a couple of years ago was doing that, and then they stopped doing it.
I wonder, maybe it was too much hassle to pull all that, but I could see maybe that getting used as a way to authenticate it. And
Sure.
The Blues may put the set stamps in initially, like to start the set, but everything else is done by Fanatics. But again, we're grasping at straws. We're guessing and looking at possibilities. Nothing may change.
No, and that's the thing. The jerseys are sent from, whether or not it was Reebok, whether or not it's Adidas, whether or not it's Fanatics. The jerseys are sent blank, and then the teams handle the customization, such as the nameplates and the set tags and all that stuff. So, I mean, again, for me, all these questions come back down to the ownership of the jerseys, and really, all of it is speculation until Fanatics decides they want to not sell the teams the jerseys. And then the question is, do all 32 NHL teams say, hey, we're willing to give up this? Because at the end of the day, it's still, the Blues do Blues for kids, but there's still revenue involved. Because, at the end of the day, they're people that work for the Blues that get paid money, that handle jerseys and pucks and sticks and all that stuff. So they're not just paying those people and then giving away all the money. It doesn't, Doesn't work that way. It's not
Yeah,
business.
but if they can cut their cost down in some of that,
Sure.
they may do that, or it may be it sounds bad. I deal with a lot with technology and like cell phones, and that is one of the long-term things that some of us have seen with like Apple is you'll never own your phone. It's always a lease. Maybe the same thing happens with the jerseys. Fanatics says, hey, basically you give us the rosters, or you can get them lettered wherever you want. We'll even cover the cost. However, we own them as Fanatics. They come back to us when the set's done, when the season's done, whatever it is, and do it that way. And again, I'm just taking guesses, but looking at different business side of things. I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities here.
Yeah, hopefully, I'm kind of thinking they'll stick with the purchase model that they have right now, just because you have variability on how certain players like to have their jerseys. You know, you have some that'll do a jersey per period as
Right.
opposed to spreading them out, and you know, I think with the Blues, there's been some individuals they've done that as opposed to the regular sets, and I believe the Montreal Canadiens started going through a wear multiple jerseys per game because you're starting to match jerseys for certain periods the whole season as opposed to just a one small period or one small section of the season. So yeah, it's all interesting. And yeah, in terms of the game worn collecting community, that's probably the biggest thing that could be of concern. Like you said, all speculating, just saying, hey, what could be, what could happen. But I think if there's an encouraging thing about all this, it's kind of what we spoke about at the beginning. They're using that same factory that it looks like it's SP Authentics
Yep.
factory. Yeah. And they've been doing it since the late 90s, and they've been doing it for several folks. And the other part with Fanatics with this effort is they've brought in, and I think the ESPN article singled out who they've brought in, some folks who've worked with CCM and Adidas and stuff over the years. So, and I'm sure that played into the NHL wanting to work with them because, hey, we went and got some familiar faces that delivered for you all before. We're going to source from the same place from a supply chain perspective. It's what you want, right?
Yeah.
And here we've grown your revenue through our agreements for fan apparel, and you know, I can totally see why it went the way that it did, but at least for game worn stuff, I'm not sweating it. You know, I can see a lot of people having some outrage just based on their experiences with the fan focused products, but the NHL and the players and the teams, they won't let them put out a poor product. Again, the Reebok Edge 1.0 was a perfect example. Right in the beginning of that relationship, they said, hey, time out, fix this.
Yeah, and it was a pretty quick switch.
Yeah, I think it was maybe one set per team or maybe two that season, and mid-season they switched over. So yeah, in terms of game worn for the actual product, it's no issue. There's nothing to be upset about. It's the other things we were talking about.
Yeah,
I agree 1,000%.
And I'm hoping that we're still doing the podcast then. But again, from the ESPN article, again, search for it. It's found everywhere now. Is everything you need to know about the Fanatics jersey deal. The big date or the big year date, and we'll have a lot of podcast episodes by then, is 26-27 season.
I'm hoping that we get Grissom's face on here by 26-27.
We can hope. Technology might make that work. But
hey, I hear webcams are affordable now.
Yeah, I know where you're at. It might be rough to get some of that. You guys have power issues and other things, but that's a whole
I'm just playing, Chris.
But some of what they're, again, one of Jennings, who's one of the guys involved in this whole process from the Fanatic side of things, he said the 26-27 is the earliest target for significant changes to the sweater. Said there could be changes to what materials are used in the game sweaters, including the exploration of lighter fabric options for the jersey and the crest. And a lot of it's the performance fabrics. I mean, we talked before the recording started about how we were very anxious about the switch from Reebok to Adidas, because we'd seen Reebok for quite a number of years and knew what the wear was going to be like, how how the repairs were, things like that. And we were very nervous about Adidas. And then once we started seeing them, some of those were torn to shit.
Yeah. The word, I mean, you got to think about this too. A lot of the things that go into the Adidas jerseys are all Adidas like copyrighted things, like, you know, they went to the prime green and things like that.
Mhm.
So there's gonna have to be material changes,
Right.
because
Unless they
those
bought
are
some kind of
owned,
rights.
unless they buy them. You'd have to assume that, you know, kind of like the word reverse retro, I think, is owned by Adidas, so that goes away. So yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to assume that they're gonna, you know, tinker with getting them the way they want. And, you know, some of those Adidas branded name materials will have to either be bought or changed in some
And
regard.
and this is
Well,
another
just a quick thing. I
sure.
think jersey tech, like the prime green stuff, that could very well be. But I wouldn't assume that reverse retro is owned by Adidas, because the NHL's been pretty good about making sure they have the rights for
Sorry.
all of their stuff with their sweaters. So yeah, I don't know that we could see him, and in fact, some of the articles referred to, well, you know, it seems like maybe we've played those out, but maybe at some point we can bring them back out in the future. You know, so I think the big thing here with the next few years when they do the switch over. So if you read the article, they've kind of, to me, it feels like they're trying to say, well, we're going to suggest or kind of hope that folks don't make big changes while we make the first transition, right? So I don't think we're going to see a big change like we did when Reebok took over with all the apron strings and kind of the cookie cutter jerseys.
Sure.
However, I'm sure if a team has a lot of passion about saying, hey, we really need to change our brand, it's this important for these reasons, they're still the customers. So we may see maybe some people switch over to something else when they do that.
It's kind of the
So
perfect time for that.
yeah, I
They,
mean,
they
for
have
the
two
St. Louis
years to
Blues.
design it. Yeah, they've got 2 years to design it. They've got the rest of this year, which is not much, but they've got all of next season. So if they're going to do a wholesale, you know, reboot,
Mhm.
what they got a whole year to figure it out, not rush it.
Yeah, and a team in the situation like the Blues, so they've had two heritage jerseys, right? The two Winter Classics. Those are already well defined and well known. They could say, hey, starting, they're already designed, no heavy lifting. Let's go to that to be our home and away. You know, like you
I love
said,
that.
they've been sticking with the same style for quite a while. So you could see them or others pivot like that, and it's not a whole lot of design work required.
Ooh,
It's
the
kind of
ugly
continuing.
Keenan one. We'll do the disapproved Mike Keenan one with the trumpet and that crap all over
Uh,
it.
I'd love to see that on the ice someday for us. I
One
really would.
other and one other piece of this too that caught my attention in the ESPN article, they talk about the performance fabrics and that, but they say the other areas of focus for Fanatics in the NHL, including player safety, said they will explore how to better guard players from accidental skate lacerations, potentially with added protection built into the sleeves or socks. Socks, you see some now for other guys, or in practice, there's Kevlar more in the back. And it says there's also been discussions with the NHL about enhancements that could be made to jerseys that are unique to certain positions, be it forward, defense, or goaltender. So that could be a very interesting piece for the collector side of things, as you may see the sleeves around the wrist have some kind of material in there to protect from skate lacerations. And then, okay, if you buy a goaltender's jersey, there may be extra padding in the chest area by default or something like that, or the defensemen have certain things that could get very interesting for when you buy those. As okay, my guy's a forward, it's had this to it by the position thing, or the defenseman has extra padding here. That could get really, really interesting for the collector side, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to go past just the goalie cut that we have now, say,
Right.
hey, maybe something's a little more stretchy so you can get more range or something like that. It's all ideas, and I'm sure they'll be testing it out, but it'll be curious to see if they come up with something, or who knows, you know, they could do something pretty outlandish. Like I don't know if y'all remember in 2000 when they had the North American and World jerseys. they gave the goalies different jerseys than the skaters, like the actual different styles, not just tech changes. So it just depends. Like if you got a goalie that you like and you like a certain style, the only way to get the style is to get a goalie, right?
Mhm.
So it just depends on where they land and what the team's like. And I suspect the teams will like everyone to wear the same sweater each time they're on the ice, though. I'd lean that way, but you never know where the ideas could go.
Right. And some of it, if the NHL, if it's done from a safety perspective, the NHL says, okay, forwards are wearing this, defensemen are wearing this because of the injuries we see, and goalies are wearing that. The teams aren't, or the players aren't going to get that choice. Some of it's going to have to be fought out between the NHL and the NHLPA. If it gets to that level, and I don't know if the NHL can dictate safety things or if it has to be negotiated, but I could see some of that those rules coming into place. The other piece of this, again, going back to the merchandise side of things from the ESPN story, it said, could this lead to Fanatics taking over more in-store arenas? They currently operate the Devils and the Capitals, and they hope to expand to more. 2018, after the Capitals won the Cup, Fanatics had all the championship products immediately available at the end of the game. So again, it's it's a money thing. Money talks. If the less the teams have to do, but still get money, that's a tough sales pitch to turn down.
Sure. It's going to be an interesting couple years.
Yeah. I'll share this fun picture with you. And I have posted this in several groups. I 100% own this. Actually picked it up at one of the discount clothing stores in St. Louis. I bought it specifically because I thought it was hilarious. Let me share this and see if you guys can see it. If you can see the Blues hat here.
Yep.
Nice fancy Blues hat with the yellow brim, and then you flip the brim over, and we're in Pittsburgh.
Excellent quality control.
Yes. The other one I've seen shared by several people on the different game worn groups of that is the nice navy blue shirt with the big Rangers logo on the front.
These are both original expansion teams.
Says New York Islanders.
So
at least they were close with that geography. Pittsburgh to St. Louis, it's a little far, but yes, this hat was $3 at Burlington Coat Factory or something like that. The hat, I mean, unless you look at the bottom, the hat's a great hat, but it's the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on the bottom of it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we've got some time. I know the teams, like Chris, like you said, are going to start working with, I kept wanting to say Adidas for a minute, working with Fanatics to figure out moving forward with marketing and design and all this kind of stuff. And hopefully more things, but I was surprised once the official announcement came out, the number of sports writers. There's another great article if you have a membership to The Athletic. They put out one there. It says why fans are furious about the NHL's uniform deal with Fanatics and why they should be. Sean Gentile put that one out, I believe just this morning. He talks about buying a T-shirt from Fanatics for $23.73, and it lasted less than 3 washes. And he talks about how, again, the quality concerns, and it's more the on-ice thing. I think we agree the jerseys aren't going to be crap because the NHL is going to make them meet a standard.
Yep.
But how they run their business side with that is some of the concerns, and a lot of people are just soured by Fanatics in general and don't want to give them their money.
No, I get it. I mean, it makes sense. The problem is I think there's tiers of the quality of the stuff you get from Fanatics. I mean, like kind of going back in time a little bit. I mean, most of the Reebok stuff was ugly and crappy. I mean, like the designs.
Yeah, their design was just terrible.
Awful. So, I mean, in that sense, Adidas kind of stepped up the game a little bit. Fanatics adds to that. You know, I mean, I always joke around like I'm a big Nike guy away from hockey. So, like, I love to find a quarter zip Nike blues, and they're almost impossible to find now.
Sure.
You know, because I like the quality of that product and whatever. So every time I'm at a game, I try to run into the team store and find that Under Armour one, which I tend to like too. So that was another brand that people had talked about possibly getting into the mix, but I know that they have some money problems right now. So I knew that they weren't going to be a player. They're financially like going downhill pretty quickly.
Yeah, that I don't know what's caused that brand to take such a run off a cliff, because they were everywhere, and
Yeah,
maybe
they
they
just basically
overextended. I don't know.
they did. Yeah, that was the one thing. I know that they signed like a $65 million deal with UCLA to be their apparel and team provider. And then I guess they backed out of that deal. So I mean, I know that they're
Ouch.
struggling. Yeah, crazy. I mean, so that was one of the other feasible options. And I mean, who knows if CCM is big enough to handle it, or if they even thought they could handle it.
And that was one of the other ones that got brought up heavy, was maybe CCM will jump back in with their quick light jerseys. The AHL
They're
uses
the
those.
They're bad. They're awesome jerseys. Like I love the AHL. Our previous team, the San Antonio, the Rampage, their jerseys were sick. I mean, Springfield's got some awesome style jerseys, a bunch
Yep.
of really cool like specialty ones. I
And
mean,
CCM's able to
knocks,
turn those out
dude,
for
they
the
knock it out
different
of the park.
designs.
Yeah. I mean, I
'Cause-
would have liked to have seen that too, I think, but
But
Yeah.
again, it's maybe because they had the AHL deal, and I think they do the East Coast, but I don't pay attention to them enough to know.
yeah. I think the East Coast teams, I think some of those teams use other like, because they wear some sublimated stuff and do some kind of crazy stuff in the ECHL. So I don't think they have a full deal with the league, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense there. So I mean, wanted to get a conversation going, and for between all the different Facebook groups, there's a lot of people are freaking out and pissed off, and it always makes things more difficult when there's not solid answers and we have to wait. So
Sure.
I know we're going to revisit this probably at the end of next season, because that'll be the end of Adidas. The nice thing is we may go to equipment sales and see a crap ton of Adidas jerseys being blown out like we did with Reebok.
Hopefully they don't put a limit of 5 on them again.
Because I think you and I may have been either together at that, or we're both at the sale the year that they were switching to Adidas, and there were just giant boxes full of Reebok blanks for $20 a piece.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So
Limit 5.
yes. Any final thoughts, or any other hobby news out there?
I guess I could quickly throw it. I went to the Nova last week. Francis Rad Needs Nova, the Virginia Jersey show, and I just kind of want to give a shout out to not only Francis, but just everybody there. Like it's the community. We were talking about it, a lot of guys there, and we talk about it sometimes. The community of this stuff is as important as the collections and the friendships and all that, and that's pretty cool. I guess I really just wanted to say, if you've never been to an expo or a jersey show or whatever, and you know all these people from all over the country and all these different places, go to one. Like you're going to have a great experience. You're going to see some incredible stuff. I know I posted in our Blues group. They had a Gretzky game worn Blues jersey, the playoff one. I mean, like,
And that is ultimately rare.
dude, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of guys that George puts on one, the South Jersey one that I think is in September. That's an awesome one. But like, if you're a hobbyist and you're into this stuff, like, make your way to one of those at some point. Like make it a mission, because it's really worth it. I'm actually wearing my Byron's Hockey Land shirt. Uncle Milt was there, and it was good to see him. And the amount of intelligent, knowledgeable, and incredible people in this hobby that you can that you've maybe met online and can talk to is really cool. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there.
There's one just around the corner in Detroit area.
Yeah,
I was trying to get that pulled up, and I should have had it before now.
That's a good one too. Absolutely, another real quality event. He does one in Pittsburgh as well, which I think just happened. But there's, like I said, if you can make one of those, do it. Like you won't regret it. You might even see one of us there.
Yeah, you've got yours coming up in October. It's only the end of March, but they're flying by super quick.
I'll be stressed out before we know it.
Yes. Trying to think of the anything else to touch on with a hobby. Chris, you got anything?
No, just if anybody from Fanatics actually pays attention to us here, hey, just kind of, yeah, there's a lot of people that love to hate, but there's some real feedback in all this, and uh, I want to actually be very excited about the fact that we're going to have a new jersey provider for the on ice product. Lots of fun stuff happens with new designs, and it could be a blast. And with their track record with their product, it just went over so poorly when it should be something to get amped up for. So take the feedback, try and understand it. You all aren't a publicly traded company, you're private, so you can make the decisions. You don't have to answer to the shareholder, right? Think of us as your shareholders, your the fans, that we're trying to give you feedback of what to do better. And
again, we're not bashing anybody. And
exactly,
like Chris, like you said, if this makes it up to people that do PIO work for Adidas or other representatives, we would gladly have you on and let you talk about what's going on. And I may try to reach out for that. We've reached out to some different people to get their opinions and kind of get takes on things. And unfortunately can't share them at this time, just for other reasons, but we've had good off the record conversations, and it's nice that it's things like this are bringing the hobby together, and get a good conversation, because some people again don't feel that there's going to be drastic changes, at least for a while, because of using the same factory and all that. But again, I'll go back to the earlier conversation. We were all nervous about Adidas, and now I don't know that I've seen many hobbyists complain about them.
No, the Adidas stuff did really well. I mean, it'll go down as probably some of the better stuff that we've had in the last 20 years, since, it's been good stuff. It's hard to really make a big complaint about Adidas.
Yeah, and the other expo, and I apologize that I didn't have this up, is the second annual Pittsburgh Game Worn Expo is coming up. This is Saturday, May the 6th. Going to be at the Lone Pine Country Club in Washington, Pennsylvania. Alan Estonia from Big Al's Hockey Memorabilia is putting that one on. You can reach out to him.
Great dude.
Yeah, Alan's fantastic. Got to meet him at your expo in St.
I was
Louis.
just with him, and we were just together in Virginia. So
he just put out a reminder a couple days. I knew I'd seen one, and I thought it was his, so it just took me a minute to dig that one up. But if you don't have a table, if you don't have even any jerseys, but you're interested in this, go, because you can make the connections, and think people will watch out for things for you, because I've reached out to people saying, hey, I either don't have the money. This is a thing that's not in my interest circle, but have at it.
It's about the relationships, I mean, like, you can just look at the three of us. I mean, three guys that, beyond this didn't really know each other. And I consider both you guys great friends, and, people that I'm
sorry, who are you?
Yeah, that I lean on in the business, and in the game, and with the jerseys,
Sure.
People would be probably amazed at how many little conversations all of us have just about what's going on. And,
and we all jump in to help. Just before we went
Sure.
on to recording here, I saw there was a post in one of the Game Worn groups, the big Game Worn group, asking, it's a Blues jersey. It has a 2015 set stamp inside, but it has the 50th and the 100th patch sewn on it, and the owner is extremely confused. Don't blame them at all.
Luckily, we know about that.
Right. Well, several of us jumped in, including myself, of like, hey, the Blues slapped those patches on a bunch of the jerseys to blow them out, because that was also the time of transition from Reebok to Adidas. So they slapped those patches on the Reebok jerseys going out the door to, one, probably get rid of the patches, because the next season you had Adidas and you only had the 100th patch on them for the first till December.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of those were preseason. I think a lot of them ended up getting stuff added, and I don't think they removed anything. And I think some of those were for call-ups too.
Yeah, they carried them for multiple years and then slapped the patches on in case they needed them. And 99.9% were never called up, but they may have wear from
previous seasons.
Patch. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty,
But even just those things is you have guys that know that, or you and I have bought some of those jerseys and know exactly what they did from confirmation talking to the team.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Hey, we're all a one big family, and dysfunctional and crazy, and we go nuts when things change and we don't
That's
like
just
it.
me. That's just me, right, Chris?
Hey, everybody gets a little silly sometimes, but I think the big thing to remember is contribute more than you consume is one thing that we all should remember. And we're all here to be fans, and it's just stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's just jerseys. Life is much bigger than that, but hey, let's all be fans together and care about each other, right? So
Sure.
it's always good to look out for each other. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Fans of each other as much as we are the stuff.
Yep. And that's how you may be friends with somebody how many years I've been talking to you, Chris, and I've never met you in person.
And you've never seen his picture because he hides.
Well, that's true too. He doesn't even own a camera. He's on a flip phone and just with a really good speaker. So
just the way I like it. I'm out here. You don't know where I am.
Area 51, I think.
That's right.
I think we've ended this on a great piece again, going back to the friendships and the connections.
What's next, Doc?
Unknown, honestly. I haven't put that much thought because I've done 2 podcasts in less than 24 hours, and I'll put some notes together and come up with more things, and we'll see if other Fanatic stuff comes up. We'll touch on news, or we'll look at auctions, or who knows what, as we're starting to get into the playoffs and see where things go. But again, another great evening of talking hockey with you gentlemen. Hope everybody enjoys the podcast. Make sure you go out to YouTube too for me. If you've watched this, like, subscribe to the page. I hate saying that crap, but I need more likes and subscribes to the actual page. I'm nowhere close to making any money on this, and it's not my intention, but I like seeing some of the metrics and just knowing people are following. And if you've got critiques, comments, things you want us to cover, please send them my way. I just randomly pull this stuff up, or in the case of Fanatics, I mean, it was all dropped in our lap. It was an easy discussion. But if there's certain things you want us to talk about, I mean, I've got long-term plans to get some of the experts in on the custom crafted specials and some of those things, and just other bits and pieces of the hobby. But again, thank you guys for listening. The other big thing I am working on soon and hope to have in the next week or two is all these podcasts will also be just audio, thrown into Spotify, Google Podcasts, all that. So as Chris and I were talking before you joined, Wade, off the air, that a lot of people listen to podcasts in the car. And other than seeing our beautiful faces and the There's no picture shared, you can hear this without the video, and you wouldn't have to use YouTube for it. So I am working on that. I'll put that all out there. You can go out and look at the Dirty Laundry Game Worn Hockey Podcast Facebook page. Follow it there. Again, send me messages. Send Wade, Chris, anybody that's been involved in these. If you've got things you want covered, you want to come on and talk about something. I always like having new faces on here. But again, thank you for all the support. It means a lot, and it's enjoyable. I may not have the biggest jersey collection compared to Wade, but you can have one jersey, you can have 1,000. You know what? You're part of the hobby, and just let's make this fun.
Thanks,
Gentlemen,
guys.
Thanks very much, and I will talk to you next time.
Night, guys.